In this exercise, I'm going to show you how to refine your selection outlines and preview your adjustments on the fly. Along the way, we're going to select some hair. Now, I'm not going to guarantee you that this approach is going to work for every image. In fact, most likely it's not. Some images are much more complicated than others. However, this image is fairly straightforward because we have a high degree of contrast and the model is set against a plain background. The image in question is called sunny.jpg, found inside the exercise files folder. It comes to us from Jason Stitt of the Fotolia image library, about which you can learn more at fotolia.com/deek. And I'm going to start things off by selecting the background using the color range command. So I'll choose color range from the select menu. And then I'll click in the background with my eyedropper. Notice that that selects most of the background, as you can see here inside the preview. Much of the background turns white. She remains black, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to go ahead and move the color range dialog box a little bit out of the way, and I'll shift drag into this upper right corner like so. And that goes ahead and selects all the remaining portions of the background. A fuzziness value of 40 is just fine. Go ahead and click OK in order to accept that modification. Now I'm going to reverse the selection by going up to the select menu and choosing the inverse command. Now so far we really don't have an idea of whether we have a good selection outline or not, and whether this image is going to work against a different background. To test things out, you go up to the select menu and you choose the Refine Edge command. The great thing about this command is it serves two purposes. First of all, you can preview the quality of your selection, and secondly, you can adjust that quality. I'll go ahead and choose the command to bring up the Refine Edge dialog box. You want View to be set to its default, which is on white, so that we can see the model against a white background. That just gives us the most contrast in the case of this specific photograph. Next, you have these Adjust Edge options, and they allow you to apply basic adjustments on the fly. As I say, you can preview what you're doing. So for example, if I increase the smooth value, that's going to smooth off those jagged edges, but it's also going to round off the corners, which isn't something we want. So I'll go ahead and return that smooth value to 0. The feather value allows you to soften your edges, so you create a kind of vignetting effect. That's not what we want either, but it's helpful for demonstrating the next two options. Contrast will go ahead and restore a sharper transition. A combination of feather and contrast working together gives you an effect very similar to smooth by itself. I'll go ahead and take contrast down. Now, if I wanted to expand or contract the selection, I could use this Shift Edge option. If I increase the value, I'll expand the edges like so. If I reduce the value, I'll contract the edges, which would have been great for that saw image in the previous exercise. Doesn't really work out here very well. So I'm going to go ahead and restore all these values to 0. Instead, what we want to do is take advantage of this edge detection feature right there. What this allows you to do is reevaluate the edges inside of an area around those edges, which is defined by radius. And to get a sense of what I mean, I'm going to turn on the Show Radius checkbox. Now initially we're not going to see anything. Everything's going to turn white in our case. But as I increase that radius value, you'll see some edges come into play here. And those are the edges around the selection outline that are being reevaluated by Photoshop on the fly. So the larger the radius value, the bigger the area that gets reevaluated. I'm going to take that value up to 70 pixels because we have all that loose hair to work with. And then, because not everything is hair, we have these big areas of hair up toward the top of the image. Then we have these crisply defined edges around the fingers and some softness around the sweater. So we need to turn on the Smart Radius checkbox, which will reevaluate that radius on the fly. So Photoshop goes ahead and keeps the radius thick where it needs to be thick and keeps it thin where it needs to be thin. Very good way to work. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off Show Radius so we can better see what we're doing. And notice what a great job that is done on that hair. I'll go ahead and turn on Show Original, which is the opposite of a preview checkbox. So in other words, if I turn on Show Original, I'm turning off the preview. So this is the way the selection looked before we chose the Refine Edge command. If I turn off Show Original, I'm turning on the preview so that we can see how much better the detail looks. However, it doesn't look so good inside of these fingers. Notice right there that I've got a brush cursor that's at work inside the image window. If you want to increase the size of that cursor, which you do, then go ahead and press the right bracket key. And by bracket key, I mean those two square brackets, which are to the right of the P as in Paul key on an American keyboard. And I'm going to increase the size of my cursor to about yay big. And then you can either add to the area that's being reevaluated by painting inside the image. So I might paint inside the hairs over on the left side of the model in order to manually paint in some radius. If you want to remove some radius, for example, the area inside the fingers used to be in better shape before we applied the command, then you press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and paint right there, for example, in order to reestablish that good edge. And I'm going to Alt drag or Option drag inside this area as well on the inside edge of that finger next to the face in order to reestablish that edge. Then I'll paint inside this bad blue hair there to see if I can make it look a little better. That's slightly better, but not best. I'll go ahead and spacebar drag up into the hair toward the top of the image, increase the size of my cursor some more, go ahead and paint inside of this region to see if I can remove some of that blue. That looks pretty good, but notice we still have some residual blue, which is why you have this checkbox right there, decontaminate colors. If you turn that checkbox on, then Photoshop will actually recolor some of the pixels and it may deliver better results. In our case, it definitely does. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the results are perfect. We do have some stray blue edges here and there, but they're a lot better than they were before. For example, if I turn on Show Original, this is how the selection looked before we chose the command. And if I turn off the checkbox, this is the way it looks now. So a dramatic improvement, again, without a lot of work, once you know what's going on inside this dialog box. Now I'll click OK in order to apply the effect, and notice that Photoshop goes ahead and duplicates the layer and automatically assigns a layer mask. I'll explain what's going on with that in an upcoming exercise. But as a result, you see the model set against a checkerboard background. That checkerboard represents transparency. That is temporarily deleted pixels. And that's how you refine a selection outline and preview the effects on the fly, not to mention select high contrast hair set against a plain background here inside Photoshop.